1 second. Okay, ready for the opening?
Well, my name is Duane, and I thank y'all for taking the time to listen to me tonight and ask me some pertinent questions that are important to y'all. I decided to run because I've seen the travesty of the breakdown with the federal government. It's just the overspending, the out of control entitlement programs that are tanking our economies. Texas is unique, and I love Texas, and I live here. And so I decided when Brandon Creighton decided to run for agriculture commissioner, that seat was going to be open, and I decided I would run for that open seat. He has since decided to run for Senate, but I went ahead and stayed in the House seat because that's where I wanted to be anyway. And so I'm running specifically to curb the spending as much as I can and push back against the federal government. I think Texas has a lot of great things going for it, and I want to make sure that we continue on some of those paths. But Texas has a lot of work to do as well as on entitlement programs. Entitlement programs are going to bankrupt this country if we don't change them now. $3.7 trillion over the next 5 years in the federal government. The Texas, the second largest line item budget we have is entitlement programs, health and human services. There's an old analogy that says once we have it, we have to continue to do it, and I'm saying we need to curb it. I'm a strong component of taking care of our seniors, but I think if you're of working age, then you need to be working. If for some reason you're not, then if we're going to spend the money, then we need to spend the money to prop you up and get you off the welfare system and being a productive member of society. I think that every person in Texas and the United States should contribute something. The old analogy of everybody needs skin in the game, I live my life that way. Every person should have skin in the game. Even if it's a minuscule amount, every person should pay a little bit. So that's me. I'm Duane Ham. I'm a business owner. I've owned multiple businesses, everything from transportation companies to construction companies to labor companies to I've invested in pharmacies. I've been investors in restaurants, and I invest in different tech companies. I invest in a number of different things, but I'm a worker, and I am a true conservative. I've employed over 1,500 people since I started my first company, and I've borrowed money once from a bank for any of my companies that I've had. I think that speaks for itself, a true conservatism. And I'll go ahead and add that I've just borrowed that money about 7 months ago because I was in the middle of this campaign and wanted to make sure I was liquid enough to provide for my family and continue forward in this campaign. So with that said, that's me.
All right. So what we'll do now is go around the table and you have up to 2 minutes to answer each question, and we'll start off.
Okay. Since 9/11, you talked a lot about pushback against the feds. One of the things the feds have done is that they've changed airport security. They have, as recently we found out this past year with Snowden, all sorts of investigation of not only what you're doing at the library, but who you're calling and everything else. And actually, just recently, there was a newspaper article about them adding inspections of vehicles as they cross the Galveston Ferry. So that all of these things are happening here in Texas. What can we do about this, and how concerned are you about this?
Well, I'm deeply concerned about what's going on. I've been deeply concerned. I traveled a bunch in my career. Up until the last year, I've traveled over 200,000 miles a year locally within the United States. That's a lot of miles within the United States. And it's disheartening that the terrorists that hit us have affected us the way they have. They're not compromised. And it's kind of, I really have a problem when I go through an airport or different places when they kind of get a pass and I don't, because we're afraid of profiling.
Right.
There's foreign countries that profile like crazy. And I can't remember the name of the country, forgive me,
Israel does.
I think it's Israel, you're correct, that profiles. I think if you don't have anything to hide, if you're profiled out, then no big deal. We continue in the United States every day to lose a little bit of our freedoms, every single day. As Republicans, we're for limited government, and even our Republican Party is guilty of passing laws that they like. And I think it's wrong. I think a lot of times we need to repeal some laws. And I'm a big advocate of that, because every time you pass one, you lose a little bit more of your freedoms. And so I have a huge problem with what you're talking about. As far as Galveston goes, it's probably going to be that TSA's federal. I mean, look at the budget they just climbed over.
Yeah.
It's sickening. So
what can you do from the state level to
Well,
address those issues?
well, we can bring it up, but I'm not exactly sure how we can stop federal laws when the TSA is ran by the federal government. If Texas has a say in it, then obviously we would pass laws to stop the freedoms. And we can bring it to the attention of the federal government, and we can file suit against the federal government. Our Attorney General sued our federal government 30 times in the last few years. And I'm pretty proud of that. And one time the Attorney General of the United States, he sued personally. So
That's right.
I mean, it's like Obamacare. And I know we're probably going to get into that in a little bit, but I mean, that's a federal law that was passed and they dumped on us. And so luckily we're hoping that that website continues to implode on itself. But our U.S. congressmen is who I would hold to the standards and let them lead the fight. That's where the fight needs to start, is there. Our U.S. congressman from here, our U.S. senator from here.
We don't disagree with that.
No.
Okay, James?
Just real quickly on that, remember we had the TSA legislation to make it a crime for the TSA to fuel us up at the airport? And that actually, it's what you call state nullification, which is, there is constitutional precedence for it, but they're not federal agents, which is why Obama was so afraid of us doing that, and we kind of don't like the fact we back down. But my question really is more, let's move, if you would, to, well, illegal immigrants, because we know for Texas, unlike the rest of the country, the border states have a huge issue with that. We have our jails, probably at least a third of most jails contains illegal immigrants, and the feds have feel no obligation to support, because that comes down to the county jails. It comes to our county budgets. And why should it be out of the county budget? Because of their unfortunate juxtaposition to the border. But for illegal immigrants right now, we seem to be fairly friendly to them. Cities are welcome to be sanctuary cities if they choose to, like Conroe is locally, as well as Houston and others. We have in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, whereas we don't give out-of-state citizens in-state tuition. And at the same time, we have local school burden because of the illegal immigrants. And this is a burden that for some reason the rest of the country feels that we have to shoulder. So what can you do to help us deal with, I know you can't deal with deportation, that type of thing, or even granting citizenship, not a state purview. But what can you do as a state legislature, would you like to do as a state legislator to help with the burden that we have for illegal immigrants? That's basically the county's problem at the moment.
Well, it's a two-part answer. And I don't know if I can get this out in 2 minutes, but part of the big issues, I'm going to back up just a little bit. We're going to take immigration, but part of the biggest issue that I have with our open borders is the terrorists that can come across there. We have huge exposures on the Texas border, and we can do more. Texas can do more on the Texas border because obviously our federal government is refusing to do some of that. And the drug lords coming across is a huge burden and a huge threat to Texas. You remember the guy a couple of years ago that was on his jet ski in the lake down there. I don't think it was ever proven, but it's highly suspected it was drug related. And so it's a two-part deal. So let's just talk about our borders being secure. In my opinion, is first and foremost. I do have issues with granting in-state tuition. And I see it a whole lot. I don't know how many of y'all see it, but I see it a whole lot in the, not necessarily in the Hispanic side of things, but I see it on the Asian side. I see it on the Indian side. As a whole, I think we need to look at it as a whole. I would first and foremost start with securing our borders. Second of all, I would start with stopping what you're talking about the in-state tuition. If we're talking
So would you
about,
be talking about the National Guard, using them? That's been done to a little bit of an extent, but that's under the governor's purview largely.
I would certainly address that as one of the things we need to do. I think Texas is a leader in so many different things in our nation.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could be a leader, and I think our National Guard would be an option, and one that I would highly recommend, and I would like to see us charge the federal government back for the time that it takes us, and the manpower and the money that it takes the state of Texas to secure our borders. And again,
Well, and
I
for the
believe
jail housing too. Why can't we send them a bill for that?
that's a whole realm that I'm fixing it to get into.
Okay.
Part of the problem in the state of Texas, if you do the crime in the state of Texas, let's say that you're busted hauling drugs, a significant amount, and you're found guilty of it, we normally house you. You're going to serve the time, and then you're deported. Now that is a burden on us. The problem we run into is if we load them up, we find them guilty and load them up, send them back, they're back in 2 days.
Yeah.
And so we basically wasted the court's time, wasted the tax dollars, and we're still dealing with the same problem. I would like to think that we would have them out there busting rocks where they not want to come back, but that's not the case. And so it's a huge problem, and it's not one that I can solve in 2 minutes. But we've certainly got to tackle it. But I don't know who we charge for it. You know, it is
The president.
well, believe it or not,
Actually, it could be
the
used-
president has
yeah.
deported, our president, I hate to give him any bumps, but our president has deported more illegals than President Bush did.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening that he's doing it, and but we've got to stop it first of all, and then we've got to quit speculating. 11.5 million, 13.5 million. I purposely think that we have to identify them. We have to identify them.
How would you identify?
Well, first and foremost, I would come up with a card. First and foremost.
Driver's license?
No. I think if they want to get it, I think they have a thing called an international driver's license. In other words, I can go to any foreign country and I can get an international driver's license. But I think if you're caught here, we have a certain amount of time, and you're going to be identified. Period, end of story. Thumbprint, fingerprint, and you're going to have an identification card. That doesn't make you legal. That doesn't, but it lets us know who's here. And if we've got some drug lords over here, if we've got people that shouldn't, that are high-end criminals, we ship them immediately. But if you're stopped on the side of the road, if you're spotted by a police officer on the side of the road, walking down the road, and you don't have that card, you're automatically shipped. But we have to identify who's here. That's part of the problem. You talked about 9/11 earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We had terrorists over here taking flying lessons that didn't even want to learn how to land planes. Their visas were out, identification was expired. We were in trouble. We have got to identify every single person that's here.
Okay, we better go on to the next question then.
I apologize for taking so long.
Right.
I have one.
It's pretty complex, and
Pat,
so
okay.
Yeah.
Pat,
How much experience do you have in Austin? How much time have you spent in Austin, either testifying on bills, or at hearings?
zero.
Zero. Do you start timer? Okay.
Done?
Real quick, do you know if there are locations in the United States that issue international driver's licenses? Who issues those?
No. Sorry, you go ahead.
To answer your question, I don't really know.
It's issued by the country of origin.
That's I was going to go. I thought I was going to go.
But
there.
the problem is a lot of countries don't recognize them. They want you to get a local driver's. The U.S. does. but very
Recognize
seldom, yeah.
But they issue them or not? That's
No,
not
no,
really the
like
question.
Mexico would
Okay.
issue it for a Mexican
Let's
citizen.
take a look.
Let me make a point on that, please, if I could. Part of the problem we have is, and I think it's fraud, it's blatant fraud, is that we have illegal people running around in this country, driving cars without a driver's license. Somehow they're able to get registration and stuff. And again, I'm gonna say I'm okay with that. The problem that I have a problem with is that they're sold insurance by insurance companies. And if you'll drive out, if you'll walk out the door and look at people's cars that have been hit by illegal immigrants that don't have driver's license but have insurance, and the insurance companies don't pay for it. Now, every one of us buys insurance, and our insurance companies run our driver's license. And that's how they base our fee. They know when they sell them the insurance, they don't have a legal driver's license or even an international driver's license. And so they take their money, and when they have an accident, they don't pay for it. I have a huge issue with that.
That's something the
because
legislature should be able to change.
you daggum right.
Okay. We have a lot of,
Did you start the clock, or is it?
Well, no, because that was just
Oh, okay, go ahead.
probably 2 minutes from 9.
that was a head nod.
I apologize.
Okay.
We have a lot of issues that are new, and we have some that are old, and one of the ones that's as old as Methuselah is property tax. Everybody says, we're gonna fix it, it's not right. Now, we can talk for a long time. Do you think property tax is bad, or do I need to explain some things that are bad about property tax? I mean, I hope you know some things that are bad about it.
I have a problem with the fact that our seniors, and I'll go back to the seniors again, I have a problem that our seniors today are taxed out of their homes.
Yes, we are.
And I think a person that works all his life and pays for his place, and gets taxed out of it, it's wrong. Now, I heard opponents the other night at the forum say, well, everybody, you either pay it indirectly or you don't. The
A couple
person-
said that.
Yeah, the person renting, pays property tax. Well, that's not exactly true. I own property that I can't get enough rent to pay the property tax on. And other people own properties that they can't draw enough rent. I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. Everybody should have skin in the game.
That's exactly right. So the real question is, aside from saying that it's not right and we're gonna fix it, blah, 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 what's gonna replace it? How you gonna fix it? When are you gonna do it?
I'm working on this right now, as we're talking about it. I'm working on moving from, and I'm talking about school tax and property tax. I'm wanting to offer up a solution, day one, that takes out property tax and school tax and moves it more into a consumption tax with a limited version. In other words, not where you pay it when you buy, not when you pay it when you sell. That would stop real estate development. It would be a big burden on real estate development. But I'm talking about more on the consumption side of things, that when you stop and you buy a Coke, and you stop and you buy a bread or a candy bar, and I don't have all the details worked out yet, but we need to move where everybody's paying. If you work at McDonald's, you're helping support our infrastructure that we have in the area we're in and the state of Texas, to where our seniors aren't taxed out of their homes. We've already passed some stuff where our veterans don't have to pay property tax. At 65 in the state of Texas, your school taxes are frozen. But on some people, are one investment away from losing everything. You know, let's just say you were invested in Enron, and your house was paid for and everything was going fine, but Enron stock tanked and everybody lost their 401ks and their investments. They were out of their homes.
So would your consumption tax include builders for consuming materials into a new home, or you're saying that's
I'm
exempted?
thinking we can, no, it's gonna have to be, we're gonna have to really sit down and write some things down to where we don't hamper, this is what I just brought up, we don't hamper development. We don't hamper, somebody's not paying tax when they buy the house, and somebody's not paying tax when they sell the house. But I'm talking about a consumption tax, so when you're consuming a consumable good that we spend every day, when you go out to eat, if you're gonna have a drink, if you're gonna walk into a convenience store and you're gonna buy Cokes and candy, and I don't know what the numbers are across the state of what we bring in, but I think we can get down to a pretty narrow. We can get within the margins of where we need to be, I believe.
All right, Brian.
So I'm gonna stay on that topic. Your question to number 16 was that an income tax would be a disaster. Okay, so you got a state income tax that we've been groaning about for, ever. You've got the property tax, which,
I didn't know we had a state income tax.
we've been talking about the topic. I'm sorry, I misspoke on that.
Okay.
We don't have the tax, but that is an option. We have continuously vetoed it.
Absolutely.
So the property tax remains. There's talk about the sales tax. If you do the sales tax, then you're gonna hamper every business in Texas, because now they've got a 12% sales tax and everybody else has got a 5 or 8% sales tax. Yeah, it could be 20 here, whatever. So what's the answer? You're one of 180 people in Texas that are gonna try to work that out,
Well, I would never
Okay, I know
advocate for a state income tax, ever.
Okay.
Let me just say, ever. And again, I'm gonna caution everybody to be real careful on, it would take some fine doing to figure out how we're gonna change the tax codes. But we've got to change the tax codes. We were speaking earlier about what we do about property tax, and our state Supreme Court has found out that the way we bill for school tax is unconstitutional. So there's going to have to be some changes there. There's talk about, when I talk about the moving to a consumption side of things, there's talk that it's 19%. I think that's overinflated, and I think it's put out there to scare people. I don't think anybody would ever vote for a 19% sales tax increase.
19% increase?
19% tax on consumable goods. That's what they're putting out now of what it would have to take. We'd have to be at 19% to move to a consumption and wipe out school
That
tax.
would be to replace all property tax, right?
All property tax.
You were talking about for seniors, basically, right? You were talking about eliminating it for seniors.
Well, I think we
Right.
could eliminate it across the board.
Across the
but
board.
Absolutely.
He was saying it's mostly bad, or most bad. For
Oh, okay.
The person that hurts the worst is our seniors. When you're at working age and you're still working, and the home that you bought, and you know that your taxes are going to increase, and it's not good. Nobody's ever happy with it. But when you slow down and you retire, and your numbers keep rising to an astronomical amount, even when they're frozen at 65, sometimes those taxes are outrageous, and we've got to fundamentally change how we do that. And your school tax normally is what's most expensive about your property that you have.
So I didn't hear a solution. I just heard, yeah, you agree that's a problem.
Ask the question one more time. I'm sorry.
What's the solution?
To
What would you do
Taxes.
to
Revenues,
To tax?
do that?
yeah, taxes, which way do we
It'll
go?
be like any form of tax, so we're stuck with this. I mean, Texas has probably one of the worst property taxes in the country.
well, we tax people on our